So glad that you could join us here today. This is, for us, we're kicking things off for TEDx Amsterdam in 2020. I'm going to first start with saying good morning because it's early morning. I don't know where you are, where you're calling from. If you've got a cup of coffee in your hands, I'd just say welcome to this journey that we're going to take with each other for the next coming 2.5 hours. We're live, so everything that happens is going to be live right now. From all the great things you're going to hear to maybe some glitches, but all of it's a part of this as well. So I was glad that we could do this. I noticed it myself. It always comes a little bit more excitement to do this live versus to have it all filmed. But also, I think that's the whole point of TED and TEDx Amsterdam, of course. So I want to thank you for joining us because we did this event via personal invites. The reason why we did that is because we wanted everyone to join this event to be here because they've been actually personally invited by people involved with the entire organization. And one of the other reasons is because we've stayed dormant and silent for a couple of months with everything happening. And we wanted to kick things off with this event. So even if you check our social media channels, they've been dormant too, and they will remain dormant for a little while. We want to use this moment to kick things off, but also to kick things off about the movement that we're starting, which I'll get into in a little bit. That you also might notice that when it comes to online promotion and things like that, there wasn't much seen. I want to talk a little bit about why we took that decision. Before everything else, though, I'm going to tell you a little bit about where we are, the location, but I have a big thank you to the whole team that's been working on this. The team started right before the entire quarantine and the coronavirus, and I noticed we were supposed to have this big meetup to kick things off for 2020. And then when it hit, none of us could meet physically. So we started to work with each other all virtually and online. So many people I didn't even meet until a couple of days ago. But TEDx Amsterdam is not only about today or 2020. TEDx Amsterdam is about from 2009. 2009, we held the first event in the Royal Tropical Institute. And I remember really wanting to attend that event because I would have been following TED for so many years and I'd been inspired by them. And then when I heard that TEDx was actually coming to Amsterdam, I remember I was a student back then and I just wanted to find any way to get there. So I emailed Jim, the founder, and I said, hey, is there any way that I could join? I remember even saying, I don't care if I have to sweep the floors, I'll be there. I just want to be a part of that. So he was kind enough to send me an invite. He said, you know what, work for half the day, and for the other half, you get to enjoy the show. Well, there was a lot to do that day, so I ended up working the whole day. But what I loved about it was what I saw with the interaction and this kind of the vibrancy of what's happening within Amsterdam and broader. And since that moment, I've been hooked on this community that we were building within Amsterdam too. If I go many years forward now, so I stayed in the TEDx Amsterdam team for a couple of years. And then I took a step out. Then on our 10th anniversary, we made a mini documentary which was about looking back at the last 10 years. And I remember when I was looking back at the last 10 years and we had these short interviews about that moment, and it just reminded me about how much we can accomplish in all that time. And it also makes me realize the power of this community, the power of this city, and what we can accomplish together. So we've gone through we're now slowly getting out of the quarantine phase, but most of all, like I said, I wanted to start with thanking the team that had set this all up and that we can all be here in this location together. A little bit about this location. This house that we're in, it is a classical grachtenpand. It was built in 1639. It is a monument in itself. I think walking around here, you feel like you're in a museum. And I think it also kind of shows sentiment to the history of Amsterdam. And one thing that I also realized about the history of Amsterdam is we're also grateful for those people that could host us and have us in this house. But when it comes to the history, I think we're in a very epic moment in time with the coronavirus, but also when going towards looking at things with respect to Black Lives Matter and this surge that's happening, this peak, this tipping point of us standing up for something. And if I even step into this house and I think of every brick that had been laid and the time era that it's been built in, it also talks about, on the one side, the people that lived here, but this other side of the story that might not have given as much light. And I think now is the time that we give light to all the different stories, to the ones that we might have read about in history, but the ones that did not get as much light. You know, the part of whether it was the time of slavery, whether it was the time of oppression, all of that is now coming more to light. And what we want to do especially is start by approaching those topics. And I think with that, we're building a new world at this moment. And that world that we're building is the one that we're deciding to do today. So the reason why we're doing this live event in this form, and we're doing it on Zoom, is because we want to not only for everyone to consume and to listen, but we want you to get active. So we're going to be asking questions and putting you into small breakout sessions to really get active and to think about questions that our speakers are going to, let's just say, entice us to think about. So I encourage you all to stay here, connect with other people, go into the breakout sessions, and just, see what it is that other people are thinking as well. Because one thing I realized, and this even happened last night when talking to the owner of this building, how different views we can have about life and about society. But I think when we start to create the bridge between those worlds, that's where we not only can start to build that world that we're looking towards, but actually can see it happen in the future. And I definitely have a vision for myself that we do have a society that is much more open, tolerant, and that dialogues like this can happen. About today. As you might have seen in the invitation, today is Act 1. Why did we call it Act 1? Because it's Act 1 of 4. This is what we've called the future of work. Why the future of work? Because today we want to approach a couple of topics. We want to talk about the future of how the economy is going to look, but also about the society that we're building. And with the speakers that we have today, we want to make sure that we can also approach the topics that have to do with, are we looking at the economy the way we should? Are there ways that we can look at it differently? Can we challenge ourselves to not become complacent and be like, well, this is just the way things are. This is the app that I have on my phone. Why not? Versus, let me challenge myself. I know I get challenged by it. I'm still struggling with it. I'm a little bit lazy myself when it comes to thoughts, when it comes to standing for either human rights or when it comes to the way that I look at the economy. But I also want to challenge myself in that. And I encourage you all to do the same thing. Just kind of, So a little bit about the upcoming 2.5 hours. We've got 3 great speakers for you today. And I'm going to introduce the first one in a bit. But each of the speakers have a specific theme or topic they're trying to bring to light. What we want to do with TEDx Amsterdam is put a light on the unsung heroes, to put a light on those that need the ideas that do need to be worth spreading. That's what this podium is for. It's not about me, it's not even about my team, it's about having a podium where we can actually showcase the things that need to be spread. So you here attending is already a part of that spreading. So I want to thank you again for attending. And I think, just going to check, can I go and introduce the first speaker? Yeah, just look at the crew. We got a few cameras and people around here, so just so you know. All right, okay, so. One other thing, while I'm walking towards there's a little thing on the ground here, because we're keeping to the precautions here as well and safety of 1.5 meters. So literally this has been measured out, but just so you know, we've kept that precautions in the house too. Allow me to introduce the first speaker. And just going to make sure that I say this, Jovana Karanovic. We had a conversation the other day about what she's going to be talking to us about today. And she is a PhD researcher at the VU Amsterdam University. And it's a university that I went to myself. And she's been doing a research for the last 4 years focused on new organizational forms, but also about a cooperative movement in the context of a labor platform. She is the founder and director of Reshaping Work. And I think for me, after the conversation that we even had, and I'm looking forward to what you're going to talk, because I'm not allowed to share too much about it on purpose, but it was also a wake-up call about my own role when it comes to this new economy. We hear a lot about these large organizations and kind of different economic platforms, but are we really challenging ourselves the way we look at them? After Jovana's talk, we're going to end with a question that's going to go into the breakout session, so stay tuned for that. And otherwise, without further ado, unfortunately, there's not a large applause, but there is one here. I'd like to introduce to you, Jovana.
Thank you. Have you ever been to a magic show? If you've been to one, You may have noticed how a magician can very skillfully make objects appear and disappear right in front of your eyes. The way a magician is able to do that is simply by playing with your attention. So if you're not paying a really close attention, you may miss important things unfolding right in front of your eyes. Now, you don't have to worry. I don't plan to pull any magic tricks on you today. But I want to bring to your attention something that makes me tick and that you may have been missing out on. Uber, Deliveroo, Airbnb, Upwork, and the list goes on. Platforms that have pioneered the so-called platform economy and that we are by now all too familiar with, if not accustomed to. I bet all of you have rented a place to a complete stranger or spent a night on a stranger's couch. I bet all of you have taken a ride with one of the ride-hailing apps or had a lazy afternoon and indulged into the convenience of ordering food via one of the food delivery apps. And if you've never hired a cleaner, a virtual assistant, a babysitter, or a dog sitter with a click of a button, I bet you at least thought of doing so. It's all around us, and it's incredibly convenient and efficient. But these platforms have also been heavily criticized for circumventing regulations, for creating a new class of low-income laborers, and for shifting risk to workers who are no longer entitled to the benefits the full-time employees enjoy. And as technologies continue to advance and new opportunities arise with artificial intelligence, we can expect to see platformization of many more sectors of the economy, from healthcare to public services. So I feel the time is ripe for us to take a moment and evaluate the status quo. So today, I want to show you that there is more to platforms than meets the eye. I want to share with you some of the findings from my research on the impact that these platforms are having on an army of workers that powers them. And I want to invite you to consider a different way of organizing our economic activities that can be promising a more fair value distribution. So, what are the platforms really, and how did they manage to create a new world order? Platforms are essentially digital infrastructures that connect us to one another for exchange of goods and services. What makes them different and business than usual is their ability to grow extremely fast by leveraging the so-called network effects. Meaning, the more users you have on one side of the platform, the more attractive is the platform for users on the other side. The more Airbnb hosts join the platform, the more is the platform attractive for travelers, and the other way around. Platforms are also not capital intensive, which is how a company like Airbnb managed to become one of the largest hotel chains in the world without owning a single hotel, and Uber, one of the largest transport companies in the world, without owning a single vehicle. This shows us that in this new economy, different things count. And what counts is not the ability to create means of production, but the ability to create means of connection. And that's what these companies have mastered. They manage to leverage and to tap into the skills of the communities. And for making such exchanges possible, they take up to 25% cut from every transaction. Powering the wheel are sophisticated algorithms and an army of workers that can be mobilized on demand. So my colleagues and I wondered, how do workers respond to this new algorithmic powered way of organizing? And how is their well-being, in their own words, being affected? To find out, we took Uber as a case study and scraped the data from a popular forum, uberpeople.net, ending up with more than 36,000 posts of what drivers discuss with one another. And what we find is surprising. Namely, the workers' well-being, satisfaction with wages, and the way Uber treats them is highly dependent on local regulations. We took 12 largest US cities, plus London, and categorized them based on whether they're strongly or weakly regulated. In the former group, there are strict regulations imposed both on platform companies and on drivers. Platforms need to obtain a special license to be able to operate in the city, and drivers need to go through a lengthy process that can at times cost up to a few $1,000s. In the weakly regulated cities, on the other hand, the regulations are much more lenient for both platform companies and for drivers. Consequently, there are more platforms to choose from, and becoming a driver can be a matter of days. So what do we find? We find that in the strongly regulated cities, such as New York and London, drivers generally have a more positive sentiment towards Uber. They cooperate more with one another, and they want to help Uber to its end. They give one another tips about the best times and places to drive, or flag a big event happening in the city. But they go even further and organize physical meetups to be able to discuss how they can improve workings of Uber. Jim is an Uber driver from Chicago, and he writes on the forum. Driver partner meeting, Starbucks Monday, February 1st at 10 a.m. As I've said in a lot of posts, I think we need to meet face to face and start exploring ideas on how we can get our collective voices heard. How we do that is completely open to discussion. We all want to see Uber and Lyft succeed. They need to start accepting feedback from their most important asset, us. Please RSVP and Uber on. As this quote illustrates, in the strongly regulated cities, drivers essentially want to see Uber succeed. Why? Because they had to go through a lengthy and costly process to become a driver in the first place, so they're more dependent on Uber. Similarly, Uber has less drivers to choose from, so they're more dependent on drivers. So in these cities, where there are more rules and regulations, the mutual dependence between platform companies and workers is strengthened. In the weakly regulated cities, the story is quite different. In the cities like Los Angeles and Washington, D.C., drivers generally have a more negative sentiment towards Uber. They're less satisfied with their wages and less trustworthy towards the company in general. Mike is an Uber driver from Los Angeles, and he writes on the forum that their full-time drivers are living hand to mouth, at least to this extent. For some reason, I get this weird feeling that they think their drivers are still doing well, and that maybe they're just that much out of touch, even though it's more likely that they both know and just don't care. But part of me doesn't want to believe it. In these cities, we also see drivers less trustworthy towards the company. One driver, who I call Sylvia, believes that she doesn't get a fair share of her earnings ever since some of the passengers voluntarily told her how much they paid for the upfront ride. As she claims, what she gets does not seem to match what the passengers paid. Sylvia and Mike are among many Uber drivers who believe they're treated unfairly. So in these weakly regulated cities, Uber has more drivers to choose from, so they're less dependent on them. And it also seems like they have more leeway to implement their own rules, which can sometimes be a driver's disadvantage. But we also see drivers sometimes take self-initiatives and engage in activities that can be directly harmful for the company. For example, back in the day when Uber did not allow tips on the app, we saw drivers in these weakly regulated cities post signs in their cars, "Tips are great," encouraging others to give tips. One driver even bought a machine to be able to accept tips via credit card for those that didn't have cash on them. So when there are less rules and regulations, the mutual dependence between platform companies and workers is weakened. So what this study shows us is not only that regulations can have a profound effect on workers' well-being, but the regulations can influence the power dynamics between platform companies and workers. But while it may seem to you that workers are just passive followers due to their relatively lower position of power, as we see, drivers and workers can, at times, take initiatives that can be beneficial or not for the company. But when such initiatives are taken beyond the boundaries of an organization, we get something that's going to blow your mind. Let me introduce you to platform cooperatives, an emerging organizational form in the platform economy. They resemble the mainstream platforms, but unlike them, they're owned and governed by users, workers, or both. The basic logic behind these platforms is that if a 15-year-old can build an app that connects us to one another, why wouldn't we, as users or workers, build our own apps and capture back the value? And this is happening. There are now more than 300 such initiatives around the globe. Driven by ideology and empowered by technology, they're determined to change the playing field. Stocksy is a stock photography website, but with a twist. It is owned by more than 1,000 artists. All artists participate in decision-making and in the matters that concern them all. At the end of the year, if the cooperative did well, artists get a proportional share. Fairbnb is a platform co-op version of Airbnb. They believe that while the industry giants brought many problems to local communities, such as rising housing prices, they can turn that into an opportunity. In particular, they have one host, one house policy, meaning that nobody can rent more than one property. And they promise to give back 50% of their platform fee to local community projects. And Partago is a car-sharing cooperative based in Belgium. It is owned by users who can purchase a vehicle and put it in a joint car fleet so that everyone can make use of it. All users participate in decision-making, and all the vehicles are electric. In this way, they hope to promote sustainable transport. It seems cool, doesn't it? The reason most of you have probably never heard of these platforms is because they're far from mainstream. Platform cooperatives often lack financial resources to be able to compete with mainstream platforms. Have you ever wondered why when Uber, Bolt, Cabify, or Didi showed up in your city, the ride costed only the equivalent of a few dollars? It's because these platforms subsidize prices to tip the market in their favor. Once they attain a big enough network of service suppliers and users, they bring the prices up. And platform cooperatives can simply not compete on those terms because they cannot attract enough financial investment. But I believe that there is something they can compete on, and that is their distinctive identity. There are people who are simply willing to consume differently, and to whom sustainability or conscious way of traveling is simply more appealing. Cooperatives have historically also tended to be more resilient to economic crises, and perhaps that's another feature they can bid. But even though platform cooperatives may never become mainstream, they serve as an important reminder that the platform economy, as we know it, is not given, but created. And while you may think of yourself just as customer of these services, we are essentially employers. We are calling these workers onto jobs and we are paying them. And our power lies in that. And if you ask me, I think that's pretty magical. At the beginning of this talk, I promised not to pull any magic on you. But I hope that this just did the trick. And that you've realized that there is more to platforms than meets the eye. And that there is a whole world behind, operating in parallel, hiding behind the obvious. And that you can, shall you try to, find your place in it. So the question is, are you paying attention? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ivana. Great to hear you talk. I hope everyone was able to has a bit of a much clearer idea, especially when you talk about this platform cooperatives. And I'm just going to ask one quick question to you, and then I would like to go into the breakout session. But why is this so important to you?
I believe it's important because very often as users of these services, we sometimes accept what is being served to us. Yeah. And I want to show people that there is really more out there and that we as customers can make our own choices, but also perhaps take part in one of these initiatives. And I believe as academics, as citizens, as policymakers, we have responsibility to be aware of what is in our society.
I think the one thing that we have is the choices that we make, and especially when it comes to, I've used Airbnb, I've used Uber, and it's not about those companies per se, but it's about knowing that there's alternatives and can we support them that are supporting those that are actually working for those or giving service towards those organizations.
Exactly.
All right, great. So There's an applause happening here, by the way, which you can't hear, but it's happening. So I'm going to go to the breakout sessions. We've got Oscar on the other line there. I'm just going to just double check to make sure that we've got the questions going to pop up in a bit. But just to word it, you're all going to be put into breakout rooms, and each room is going to have a moderator. They will introduce themselves in a bit to show you about how that format's going to work. There's a certain time that we're going to have to discuss a specific question after Ivana's very, let's just say, insightful, but also magical talk, as you just talked about things that we can really think about. So the question is, and this will be posted in the chat as well, which is, how can you keep an eye on other ways of using the economy and looking beyond the companies and organizations that we're used to, such as Airbnb and Uber? So how can you keep an eye on that? What are things that you can do yourself? This is not a way to rant about the things that aren't going well. This is more about to see about how we can go towards the future and what we could do. So think more of in a proactive way. All right, I think we're gonna just check if Oscar is ready to go. He's got thumbs up over there. You're all gonna go into breakout sessions. I think it's about 15 minutes. We're gonna double check to see how all the groups are going. Enjoy your sessions. Connect with the other people that you have over there. Listen well. The moderators will give the instructions, and see you in a bit. Hey, welcome back, everyone. I got my laptop in my hand. Just wanted to check some comments on Zoom while they're coming by. Yeah, so I hope you had some good conversations. I did read a couple of comments that you got ripped out a little faster than it was supposed to or intended to. That wasn't, well, if there's something that happened there, we'll just double check on the next part. But I think you still had 2 minutes, and then you just don't click out yet. But that's just maybe a technical thing we can check for the next one. Before we start, though, and before we get into the sharing, because I'd love to zoom in to a couple of, zoom in, I didn't mean to make that comment, but, well, okay, pun not intended. But before we get into a couple of the outcomes that came up from the breakout sessions, I want everyone to do one thing. I want you to write down, if you can, in one sentence, what your main outtake was from both the talk and the conversation that you just had in your breakout session. So take 20 seconds right now, type it up in the chat, and share it. So share what is one insight, one interesting thing that you heard, something that you feel like you're going to do. So take about 20 seconds. I'm just going to silent it for a moment and write it down and post it in the chat. So let's do this right now. So I can already see some interesting comments being made. That's interesting about what, be aware of what's happening behind the curtains. Cool. I like that about the importance of our role as consumers to invest or commit to initiatives that align with our needs. Yeah, and I think just not always going to the mainstream platforms. Yeah, and that there's also a lot more ethical alternatives, and I think it's always hard to say, yeah, what I'm doing, it's not maybe ethical or shouldn't be, and that there are different alternatives that can go into that. So what I'd also, while everyone's typing things up, great, these cool comments to read. I can't read them all. While this is happening, I also want to just take a moment to thank our moderators. We have this moment, at least the ones that I could read up were Solange, Dan, Eileen, Lina, Alex, Marijke, Lottie, and Amar. So thank you they're part of the team as well, and I hope you're also getting to get to know each other and got to know them. Okay, so I just want to zoom into a couple of people. If I could pop up one of the moderators maybe just to share a few things that came out of your session. So let me see. Solange, can I ask you to, I think you can be unmuted. Just going to check with Oscar if you can unmute you. Could you maybe just share a little bit of what came out of your session?
Yeah, sure. First of all, the session was really too short because I think we had a lot of cool ideas there to share. Basically, two main things that were really eye-opening from the session is that a few people had really an epiphany where they actually use Uber a lot and they never thought about the effects. Also, somebody said this was an eye-opening talk about this team. And basically, one person, I think it was Marnix, had a very direct action that he was going to do. Marnix is a lawyer, and he said, what I'm directly are going to do is create more awareness around my clients about this subject, because they interact a lot with platforms, and they also have the capability to, if they know more about the labor rights, do something about it. So that's really great. And Wilma had a very nice idea, and I think everybody in the chat or in the talk supported that, that it was about a exchange of a value compass, where it's not only about the head, but also about the heart. And I think that resonated a lot for everybody, because it's not only about super growth, but it's also about being sustainable together with each other. There are a lot of people on this earth, and I think that was the outcome of our breakout. So thank you all for the breakout session, by the way. Sorry that it was disconnected early.
All right, thank you very much, Solange, for popping in there. The next group I'd like to ask, just for some little recap, can I go to Lena's group? So Lena, if I can get you on camera just to share a little bit about what happened in your group.
Yes, sure. Couple of points to share was that what was mentioned on the screen before, that sometimes we are not aware what's beyond the company name, and that's actually economy and the platform. And also the points to share that sometimes everybody can, start their own platform and locally, and later scale it up, and also see around what's good in your community for yourself, and then have the platform that you start up and you also support around you.
All right, thank you very much. I'm just going to put this down. So we've been asked about using our heart compass and the fact that we can take initiatives ourselves. And I think most of all what it comes down to, and I think what all of this comes down to, is, are we willing to take responsibility? Are we willing to question ourselves ethically, to make different choices? I am someone that, like I said earlier, I can be very complacent and can be very lazy. It's so easy to do, just to click, 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 and you can order something, you can use a taxi, whatever it is. But I think if I'm able to take that extra step, that little bit more of a conscious choice, that we can start to actually support those initiatives that, let's just say, could do with more support, especially in this time. So thank you all for contributing. It's great to read all the comments. I didn't get a chance to read them all, but I hope we can also just recap them. If there's anything that someone said that you felt that really charged something in you, write it down for yourself. Note it. If there's somebody's name that you saw comment, like, ooh, I want to connect with that person, we'll tell you more about how to connect with each other, because we've got a platform that we've set up to bring this community online as well. So know that there will be a place where you can say, hey, but I want to have more of a conversation with that person. There's something set up for that specifically. Okay, just checking. Are we good to go to our next speaker? Yeah? All good? All right. So I would like to welcome you back to at least this part, and our next speaker for today, for this morning. Very excited to introduce him. This is Melvin Chunay. I should have said it properly the first time. We had a conversation the other day, and we were talking about this talk and about the work that you've been doing. I'm going to introduce a few things and just a few personal notes too. Melvin set up the Young Global People. It's one of the largest online communities for multicultural talent in the Netherlands. He also set up the Other Network, which is a network club for highly educated professionals with double cultural backgrounds. And he's also the board member of the VNO NCW. I think the thing that you've been constantly working towards, and what I also understood from our conversation, and also a bit of the, just kind of looking into you and the work that you've done, is about creating equal opportunities. You're going to be sharing more about it, of course, in your talk. But I think what especially touched me, also as a person of color and growing up, was this kind of difference of the society that I either grew up with or the people that I had known versus the one that I met either within my education and even within the business world. Yeah. And there seems to be a big difference there. So I'm looking forward to hearing about what you have to share. And most of all, I commend you in advance already for the work that you're doing and how you're trying to create a bridge between the two worlds. So everyone, Melvin.
Haile Selassie said it 57 years ago. Until the color of a man's skin is of no more significance than the color of a man's eyes, it's war. So imagine a world where people live in harmony, where all people are created equal, where people are judged upon what they do and how they do it, and not upon what they look like. Wouldn't such a society be great? Because in such a society, there would be no need for war. My name is Melvin Tunay, and let me take you on my personal journey in creating more cultural diversity within the Dutch corporate landscape. I was born in Amsterdam out of Surinamese parents. And when I was 12, I moved to Suriname, and when I was 19, I moved back. I did high school in Suriname, and here I did a bachelor in marketing. I had a few sales jobs, and then I started my own financial advisory services. But I noticed that when I was selling my services, I only was selling it to white people, blonde people with blue eyes. And in my inner circle, everybody was colored, and both groups were both as successful. I remember one time I was at a meeting, and I was the only non-white person in the room. So my American cousin would say, this event is so exclusive that even the waiters are white. Because of this, I founded the Other Network, and the Other Network is like a business club for multicultural professionals. And when I did that, I got so much energy that I truly found my calling. I sold the financial advisory service, and then I moved on to doing the Other Network full time. A year later, I founded Young Global People, and Young Global People is the biggest recruitment agency for multicultural talent. And when you look at the Dutch society, from my point of view, something fascinating is going on. Because the Dutch perceive themselves as very liberal. I mean, they're liberal, they're open-minded, you can buy a joint on the street. Because I think soft drugs has been legalized since '76. You can go to the red light districts because prostitution has been legalized since the Middle Ages. Gay marriage, people of equal sex walking hand in hand, kissing on the street, it's no problem. And freedom of speech is very important because you can say anything to everybody wherever you are. And everybody is welcome within the Dutch society, but is everybody really welcome? Yes, but only if you abide by Dutch dominant culture. And if you don't do that, you quickly run into difficulties. So if the black soccer player scores a goal, he's Dutch. If he misses a penalty, he's Surinamese. But you also find it in the selection process. You're not, as a candidate, only be judged upon your competence, but also if you had common ground with the interviewer. Did you visit the same student fraternity, so to speak? And more importantly, does the interviewer think you are somebody he can hang with, he can have a drink with? And if you don't meet these three criteria, you're not hired. But drinking also is very important in the Dutch society. I mean, if you don't go to the afternoon drinks, the Friday afternoon drinks at your company for whatever reason, you're being left out of the loop. And basically, if you speak out against a social norm in the Netherlands, then the Dutch can perceive that as a threat. And the divide is there at a systematic level as well. Because did you know that only 1% of the people in top positions have a multicultural background? This despite the fact that 54% of the population in big cities are multicultural. 25% of the students at big universities have a multicultural background. So that's a huge group, which somehow isn't fully contributing to the Dutch society. So why is that? Well, maybe I can give you an insight from a history point of view. I mean, like I told you, I'm from Suriname, and Suriname is a former colony of Holland. And in Suriname, slavery was abandoned in 1863, but effectively in 1873. And the Dutch was the last European country to abandon slavery. Late 60s, early 70s, they brought people from Morocco and Turkey in as immigrant workers, doing the job that nobody else would want to do. And because of that, both group doesn't have a very high social status and are often thought as being inferior. This influenced the image of a society where white people often feel superior to people of color. And that's a pity. And this already starts, and this translates itself by following things. For instance, if you are multicultural, then everything you do lies under a magnifying glass. If you make a mistake, it's bad. If your white peer makes a mistake, okay, no problem. We, as a recruitment agency, also see it in resumes with an exotic surname are more often put aside than resumes with a Dutch surname. But you can also find it in, for instance, ethnic profiling by the police, in the witch hunt the tax authorities did, targeting people with a double nationality, but also in discrimination in the labor market. And this phenomenon is so socially ingrained that when they did the research among small children, they asked them which doll you think is the nicest and which doll is the more intelligent. And the children always said they chose the white doll over the black doll. Doesn't it break your heart? And to make matters worse, white people don't have this problem because they're the dominant species. So because they don't have this problem, they don't recognize and acknowledge the problem. And they say, well, you're exaggerating. No, we're not. And this thing already starts at primary school. I mean, it has been proven that multicultural children get a lower school ranking than their white classmates, even if the test scores are the same. Because they get a lower ranking, it takes them longer to complete university. And because it takes them longer to complete university, they cannot or have more difficult to pursue that high-profile career. What we also find, and what I myself experience, is that I also got a low school ranking. But then my mother went to the headmaster, fought like a tiger, and I got the highest ranking. But hey, how can we create a society where we don't have to do that? How can we build a system where everybody's equal? What I also find is that cultural differences hinder the influx of multicultural people. For instance, multicultural people come from a we culture, the needs of the many. Western people come from an I culture, the needs of the few. So for instance, if you ask a job applicant, hey, why do you want to become a lawyer? He can say something like, oh, because it would make my family very proud. But the recruiter doesn't recognize that argument, and the candidate is dismissed. But also in Dutch culture, it's very important to give a firm handshake. If you don't do that, for whatever reason, they don't feel you're up to the task. Look somebody in the eye. Out of respect, a multicultural candidate can look away. But then the interviewer thinks he's not honest. And what we find in our practice is that multicultural candidates have difficulties in selling themselves, being direct. But not being direct is, by Dutch standards, equal as not being ambitious, having less impact. So what are we doing about it from Young Global People? First, we're going to merge Young Global People and Global People into one network. We're going to organize network meetings. We're going to make sure everybody is meeting each other. So meetings with corporates, candidates, role models, all be able to learn from each other. And what we're basically going to do, we're going to give a crash course to candidates. How to survive in a white corporate environment. So what do we do then? We teach them the written and unwritten rules, what to do, what not to do. We help them make their resumes corporate proof. We help them to prepare for job interviews and use their multicultural identity as an asset and not as a liability. We accompany them with every step of the application process, coach them when they are hired, so that they stay hired and don't get fired. But unfortunately, this is not enough, and it's going way too slow. And that's a pity. And therefore, I would encourage business and government leaders to see cultural diversity and give it the importance and the urgency it needs. And this is still not happening. And that's a pity. Because if you look at Holland from an economic point of view, then Holland is the gateway to Europe, an international hub where we can do business. But if you look at the international community, there are over 200 nationalities being represented by 1.8 million people living right here in the Netherlands. If you take into account the multicultural people which have a Dutch passport, you're talking about a group of maybe 3 to 4 million people. That's a huge talent pool, which is currently not used, but it can. I encourage business leaders to look at their own company very closely and to see if they can do something to get multicultural people aboard. So how can we create a safe environment for multicultural people? How can they feel safe to apply for a job at your company? Where can we find them? What can we do? And how can we create more cultural diversity? And I have some tips for you. One is, look outside of the box. So what can you do, what you haven't been doing before, to create more cultural diversity? Talk to multicultural professionals. Ask them what they want, what they need, and how can you work together, and what can you learn from them? But also expand your personal and business networks. And business network is easy, but also expand your personal network. So, have you multicultural people in your personal inner circle? And when have you last met them? Like I said before, only 1% of the people in top management have a multicultural background. But 54% of the people at big cities are multicultural. And 25% of the students at universities are multicultural. So I challenge business and government leaders, look critical at your own organization and try to increase your multicultural workforce by 15 to 20% at all levels, junior, mid-year, senior, in a time span of 1 to 2 years. Will this be difficult? Sure. Doesn't it happen overnight? I don't think so. Will you run into obstacles? Hell yeah. But like the saying goes, every journey begins with the first step. So what are you going to do tomorrow to make this happen? And like the Nelson Mandela quote goes, it always seems impossible until it's done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melvin.
Thank you, Salman.
I love what you said when you said the question which kind of really struck with me is everybody really welcome?
Yes.
And I've been having conversation, especially the last couple of weeks, about everything that's been going on. I think it's kind of the epitome of what happened with the coronavirus and then the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah.
And you also talk about building this system where everyone is really equal. Mm-hmm. Now we have a question that we want to ask everyone as well. You've given a few tips too, which is about how do we guide these people from with multicultural backgrounds.
Yeah. Yes.
The specific question, do you?
Yeah, sure. The question would be, so what are the 3 things you can do tomorrow to increase cultural diversity within your company?
Yeah. And I'm going to add a little, because we talked about this too, because you said it needs to be a representation of the society that we have actually here in the Netherlands. So we said, let's make it 15%. Was that the number you use? Or
yes.
Yeah, 12 to 15?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I'm not sure how
let's be ambitious. Let's call it 15%.
15%, yeah. Okay. And I don't know how you do that in people. You can't cut people in half, but let's just say 15%.
Yeah.
If you were to look at within your own organization, your team, or even within your friends group, what would it take to actually increase those with multicultural backgrounds by 15%? Is that the question? Or
No. The question is, look at your own organization.
Yeah.
So probably in your own organization, most of the workforce are white Dutchmen.
Yeah.
So what would it take to increase it to hire 15% multicultural colleagues within a time span of 1 to 2 years?
Okay, so how do you increase the amount of people that are being hired by in the upcoming 1 to 2 years?
By 15%.
By 15%. Okay, I hope
and
everyone
at all levels. At all levels.
It
will be a challenge.
Yeah,
I can tell you that.
Yeah. So that's the question. It's going to be popped up in the chat in a bit. Just checking with Oscar. How are we doing in terms of the group? Yeah, he's put his thumb up. Okay, cool. You're all going to be put into breakout sessions. Just to double check, you're going to have 2 minutes to leave it. So don't click on leave the group straight away. Wait until the conversation is done. Thank you to the moderators again for setting this all up. I'd say good luck connecting and hearing each other out, and we'll see you in about, I think it's 15 minutes. All right, see you back then. Okay, welcome back everyone. I think everyone's been brought back from the breakout sessions. I hope you all had some good conversations. We're going to do the same thing that we did before. I'm going to check if Oscar can post the question again, but I think most of you still remember the question. I'd like you all to take the upcoming 10 to 20 seconds to just take a deep breath. Think about what made the biggest impression on you with respect to either the conversation or the talk that you just heard from Melvin and the things that he was trying to, at least the message that he has and the movement that he's trying to create in that too. So take 10, 20 seconds, and when it's about an action that you can specifically take, what is that? So write that down in the chat, and then we're gonna highlight a couple of them. So I'm gonna just pause for a moment while you do that. I see that at least the members of the group are being thanked for explaining their views. No, I like this comment. I'm just going to read it out. To be honest with yourself about your preconceived notions which may negatively impact your approach to other people, those opposite to you. It's funny because even in a conversation yesterday that I was having, there's also this kind of connotation between you and them. And then as soon as you call them, we create that dichotomy that we're actually trying to remove in the first place. I like the fact that you want to keep the conversation going and staying curious. I want to highlight a couple of people. Let's see, Marijke. If we can zoom into you and ask you just about maybe you can mention a few things that happened in your conversation.
Yes, the main thing that came out of our session is that education is a very big part of it's a very big part to create awareness and also to entice more curiosity to cultures and take responsibility in this matter. We also highlighted that the topic has to be very on top every time, that everybody has to be very open for discussion, and that media also has a big part in how we perceive other cultures, and also to give the opportunity to people to reach out and just be on top of the topic.
Yeah, good point. So I think the fact that one is that level of education that is needed, that how the educational system is being approached, but also the, let's just say, the access to education, and the other side is about how media and their role in that. And anyone who's involved with media will also know about how it literally shapes the way we think. Dan, can I zoom into you and your group and what came out of your group conversation?
Yeah, sure. No problem. We spoke on education as well, but it was mainly driven on how do you make sure that your hiring process is not focused on only a specific group of, let's say, white students, for instance, and how can you make sure that you're not biased if you look at all the resumes that are sent in for specific jobs? And we thought that on a junior level and on an intern level, it was a bit easier, but how do you do it as well on a top level, on an executive level? And that was where the discussion was all about. It's really really good and interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, good point. I mean, how do we do that on a higher level? And I think that's a part of Melvin's work as well, but I think it's something that we can all kind of get involved with, that those, let's just say, on top, is there a role that they can play, and playing a much more proactive role in that too. And I like what there's also, I think Solange just posted the documentary as well, which is specifically zooms into these kind of biases that we have, and whether or not, just to be able to confront ourselves with those biases. I know that last time they even did a test about privilege or whatnot, even me being a person of color myself and growing up in this society, notice how much privilege I do have, because the questions that were being asked, that I did have a higher education, and how much that can shape the way your future takes. And of course our speaker, or the interview I'm going to have after this, is going to touch on that too. For now, we wouldn't be TEDx Amsterdam if we didn't have entertainment, because the E of TED stands for technology, entertainment, and design, but of course it's much broader than that. And one of the things that we always have is entertainment, because entertainment, our brains, our bodies receive everything in this world in so many different ways. Now, it is a surprise, but also a pleasure for me to introduce the our next artist. Her name is Catel Chevalier. I know her very coincidentally because we went to the same European school together here in the Netherlands. And I have a small anecdote about that before I talk about her incredible achievements so far. When we went to school, we went to a school which was, I was having a conversation the other day with somebody. I'm looking at her, by the way, if I'm looking there. We were having a conversation that we had such a multicultural school that we didn't have either majorities or minorities. So we just hung around with people that had the same interests. When I started going to university here in Amsterdam, only then did I see the division starting between those either with a particular background and those with maybe more foreign backgrounds. And then I just noticed that during the lunch. And I was having a conversation saying that was a privilege in itself, to grow up knowing that it wasn't about background, skin color or not, it was about where we came from. And to see what she's done now, because I remember back at school always singing too. And then it was, I think it was the 7th edition of The Voice of Holland. Suddenly I see someone on stage singing Formidable from Stromae. And I was like, oh my God, I know her. I'm telling all these friends, she went to my school. So I'm so honored to have her here. There's so much that she's accomplished in the meantime. She is a French-Dutch singer, which makes her very unique. Also because of her background, because she's French-Dutch herself, having lived in France and in the Netherlands. 2012, she brought out an EP, Emmanuel, with 5 songs on it. In 2014, she also brought out an album which had, which she called like the Artichoke Heart, which is 11 different leaves of the artichoke, which stands for a sensitive person. I want to try to say the French word. I'm not going to try now. I know I'm going to get it wrong. In 2017, she worked with the Dream Lab Theater to create a theater production called Devoir. And in 2018, she had her own EP J'avance. Allow me to introduce to you artist Catel with on the piano Ton.
Si l'amour n'existait pas, les rivières s'arrêteraient-elles et les oiseaux dans le ciel. Si l'amour n'existait pas, si l'amour n'existait pas, le sable quitterait la mer qui ne pourrait plus que se taire. Si l'amour n'existait pas, si l'amour n'existait n'existait pas, les poètes perdraient leurs mots et la lune blanche son halo. Si l'amour n'existait pas, toutes les fleurs disparues, les couleurs de la terre fade, partout des portes en barricade, et l'horloge ne tournerait plus. Als de liefde niet bestond, dan was de hele vrijerij bedorven. De wereld was gauw uitgestorven. Als de liefde niet bestond. Als de liefde niet bestond, zou de zon niet langer stralen. De wind zou niet meer ademhalen. Als de liefde niet bestond, geen appel zou meer rijpen, zoals zee's in paradijs. Als wij elkaar niet meer begrijpen, dan is de wereld koud als ijs. Ik zou sterven van de kou en mijn adem zou bevriezen als ik je liefde zou verliezen. Il n'y a pas d'amour sans toi.
Wow. I want to applause, but it just feels like applauding one or two people here. Thank you very much, Catel. Thank you, Ton, as well, for sharing your artistry with us. Lovely to see where you are right now. And I think you said you had a new production coming next year, a theater production. So I'd say stay tuned for that, everyone. There's going to be more coming from Catel and her beautiful artistry. Okay, we're going to transition on to the next speaker and the last part of our morning. So you've been with us so far. Firstly, thank you for all of that. I hope you're able to go to the toilet in between, because sitting behind your laptop for 2 hours can seem pretty long. But we're going to go on. This is the last part of it, and I think this is a good way. This is, for me personally, the perfect way to close this morning off. I'd like to introduce to you, I'm going to look this way because we're going to twist cameras, if I'm right. Yeah? Okay, check. There we go. Okay. Good morning, Tanya. So let me introduce Tanya very shortly, just to make sure that we give a bit of context towards this and about why we're having this conversation. And then we're going to just dive into a couple of questions together. And I think we also had a conversation already before this, but we can explore the great work that you're doing. And actually, I want to say something in advance, because a lot of people ask themselves, what can I do? When you saw the protest happen about Black Lives Matter, people said, yeah, but what can I do? What can I do? Well, you're going to get some answers about what you can do right now. You're going to actually have something you can actively do. So if you feel like that urge was in you, whether it doesn't matter what your background is, I hope now you'll actually get a couple of answers to that. So I'd like to introduce to you Tanya Yadnansing. She is the president of the board of the Municipality of Southeast Amsterdam. Now, southeast of Amsterdam is a very special region within Amsterdam. It's gone through many transitions, and I'm also trying to use my wording properly to not give it the previous stereotype that it's always gotten, but it is a area which I feel has so much potential, and that's one place that I know Tanya has also been working on too. Because in my first conversation, I even stereotyped the way I had actually pronounced that area of Amsterdam, and I think that's where we need to start. I need to start with my own wording, my own thoughts about it, and also about how we need to approach it. She's been a mentor since she was 28. She's been doing it for many years, not a time that I should be mentioning anything about her age. But okay.
Really?
Well, okay, no, I'm just going to leave that, but she's been doing it for many years. But what she does is not only about work on policies but that she works on initiatives. She tries to make sure that everyone that's actually, to actually know what's going on the level of education or working opportunities. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I just want to make one comment
Yeah.
because I have this like a little sort of thingy in my throat now because of the song. It touched me. It touched me because it was so wonderfully stated that we need love to understand each other, and we need understanding to love each other. And I have this theme in Amsterdam Southeast that I say, what we need to do now is let us shower this nation with love, with the love of Amsterdam Southeast. So this song was so appropriate for this conversation.
And especially about the fact that we need to, that love and that bridge that we need to go towards each other.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, I'm not going to be able to see it right now, but if there's a shout out from anyone who's tuning in from Amsterdam Southeast, please do that now, because then we can at least know that you're here too. Why did you say, when we talked about TED and TEDx, just to listen, why did you say yes to having this conversation with us here?
Okay, so this is a question maybe you won't think, well, where did you get this answer, but this is the truth. Every night before I go to sleep, I treat myself to a TED Talk and some chocolate, but also the TED Talk. So this is my treat. And I was just looking at TED Talks and I was like, what if one day I can be in one of them? So ta-da, here I am.
Here you are, indeed. And so that, again, that's a good way to close off your night, chocolate and a TED Talk. Yes. So I'm not sure if that'll keep the doctor away, but at least it'll keep your mind inspired.
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about the work that you're doing in Amsterdam Southeast? And can I want to specifically know about, of all the things, because you've also been in politics and you've got a resume that I find almost too long to mention at this moment, but please search her up, find out all the work that she has been doing. But why did you decide to be the president of the board of Amsterdam Southeast Municipality?
Yeah, well actually, I know my inspiration. What is my inspiration is that when I was 2 days, I could be this chairperson for Amsterdam Southeast, and I went into a community service center, and there was a little boy. And he is from, I think, African Dutch origin. I don't know for sure. But he was standing there, and I was just, walking towards him, and hi, I'm Tanya. I am this new chairperson here in Amsterdam Southeast. So what can I do for you? And he was looking at me like, really, I'm 10. What kind of question is this? And I said, well, I'm the chairperson. Okay, what can you do? And I just, said, I'm going to make policy, blah, blah. And he said, okay, then I know one thing you can do for me. And I was okay, please tell me. And then he said this. He said, can you just please stop people calling me poor? Oh, wow. Because my parents have little money, but I'm not poor, I'm full of talent. And this is my inspiration every day. When I go with my bike, I go into the city, I'm like, this boy, I need to be there for him and for his parents and his grandparents and the whole community. So I liked your introduction because this is it.
Yeah.
What we need in Amsterdam Southeast is another narrative, another story, that people see my people as they really are full of talent. And yes, some of them, they don't have enough money, they don't have the resources, but then here I am, and I hope a lot of people who are watching us now, please step into the platform and let's make things happen for this little boy from 10 and his parents and his grandparents and his community, because he has a lot of talents. The only thing he needs is a great education and some opportunities. But he's already, he's there.
Yeah, so I want to just zoom into what kind of possibilities have you tried to create? So just tell me a little bit about the work that you're doing so that we can all get a bit of an idea of, so how is that changing and what,
Well, actually, we stated that what we need is a lot of opportunities. We need opportunities in education, in work, and in housing. So I am the person, Lady Education, they call me. Lady Education, and even the kids in Amsterdam Southeast, they call me Juffrouw Voorzitter, which is a Dutch word for, I don't know, you can help me. Like it's teacher chair lady, teacher president, teacher president. When I come with my bike into the city, Southeast, and the kids are in the schools, and they are just waving to me, and hello, Juffrouw Voorzitter. And I love that, because this is it. It's the enthusiasm they have for me, and I have for them. It begins with connection. You can have these great projects and a lot of blah, blah, but it begins with a connection. It begins with a connection. So I hope all the people who are watching us now are feeling that connection. And if they don't, I can help you with that. Please come and we'll have that. No, without joking, I think we need the connection. My kids, every kid needs a champion. And I'm trying to bring in a lot of champions so they can see what they can be. This is it.
And because you've been mentoring for a long time, can you explain about, firstly, why you've mentored for so long? And could you maybe explain a couple of anecdotes that came out of the mentoring that you've seen that change happen? So,
well, the list is too big. You didn't want to say it, but I'm saying it. I'm 53 now, so I have a lot of years of experience. And actually what I see is that a lot of those kids, you just have to, lit that fire in them. It's already there. Only thing I do is I give them the match. I'm just going there. And I've seen kids grow. I have seen kids, sometimes, let me tell you this. Last week, I heard an interview on the radio. And there was this really great writer. I didn't ask her permission, so I cannot call her name. But a really great writer. And she was just going on and on. I was listening. And then somebody asked her, and who inspired you? And she called out my name.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, wow. She's 30 now. And this is what you need to do. It's by example, living by example. So I am a politician, so actually I do need to talk a lot, but still I not necessarily believe in a lot of talk. I believe in just living the example. And what I like is when I come into the classrooms, a lot of kids now say, okay, I'm going to be a cheerleader also, because they see me.
Yeah.
And what you see, you can be. And I think that this is what we are getting across now in Amsterdam Southeast. We're going to do a huge summer program, which will cater for 11,000 kids.
Wow.
We'll have summer schools, like beautiful singing classes, debating classes, but also a lot on self-esteem. Because I do believe, you said it, like we have privileges. I've been privileged my whole life. And not everybody gets that.
No.
So, but I can provide for them.
Yeah.
So we'll have this great summer school program, but this is only the beginning. What I want is, and what I'm searching for is for high qualified education for all of the kids, because it's impossible that kids, I applaud for the kids in Amsterdam South or in Amsterdam New West or whatever, but I see differences in schools. I see great schools with so beautiful programs for all the kids, and then see my kids from Amsterdam Southeast, and I'm like, I need that for them also. So not in envy of other people, but in, okay, so they have that, I want that also.
I want to create that too.
Yeah. It's like, it's not a but it's an also.
Land.
They have it, and my kids could have it
too.
also.
Yeah, so it's always the and.
It's the and.
Yeah, and we talked a little, and I like that when we were talking about it, you said, there's some things in education that we need to teach more of. We get a lot of when it comes to these kind of like, maths and
skills,
geography. What were the topics that you said that would need to be essential in the educational system?
Actually, I do believe in social skills a lot. How to present yourself, but even, how to adapt to society, because it's normal and it's only human to stay in your own comfort zone. So the discussions you had before on diversity and how, in the workplace, but it's a two-way street. So it's also my kids, my youngsters, getting prepared for white society and how to adapt so you can succeed. And it's, a lot of people are like, I want to be, I want to be myself. Of course, you can be yourself. You can be yourself, absolutely. But in being yourself, let me help you to give you tools to adapt. And not only me, but a lot of people in Amsterdam Southeast, in the summer programs, but even we have a mentor program going on in some of the schools. But we do need a lot of more people to come in. And just, I believe in brain picking. So let me pick a lot of brains and give it to those people in Amsterdam Southeast, and even not only the youngsters, but also their mothers, also their fathers.
And why is that so important to actually have to include the parents too?
because it's a community.
Yeah.
We need the whole of the community to, it's a saying like, it takes a village to raise a child. It's been said 100,000 times, but it's true. And I guess in Amsterdam Southeast, we do need the community to make those kids excel.
Yeah.
Be successful as they can be.
Yeah. So I want to zoom into two things. One, I would like to, I just want to throw a little bit of a, tiny curveball. The couple of last weeks has all been in tune of Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
It's been massive. There was the big demonstration at the Dam Square, the one that was actually happened at in Amsterdam Southeast in the Martin Luther King Park. And what I loved about it was how organized it was, with dots on the ground, 1.5 meters. It was a peaceful protest.
Yes.
How many people attended again?
Well, we had 11,500 dots, but there were 14,000 people coming in.
Yeah.
And what's nice about that is that the whole of the community helped, because before this would be happening, there were a lot of signals coming in that there would be a commotion, people would come in and fight and blah blah. And I was like, I cannot have this. I cannot have this in Southeast, no way. So the 3 days before the actual thing happened, we called all of our community leaders. And we said to them, this has to be the greatest, the best demonstration ever. And all of the mothers, all of the leaders were coming into the office, and they were like, let us help. And when you came into the city at that morning, we had all kinds of hosts with little red jackets, and in the back there was like, ask me, I'm your host. Ask me anything, I'm your host. And girls and women smiling and welcoming all of the people into Amsterdam Southeast and saying, welcome in Amsterdam and welcome in Amsterdam Southeast, because we are the smile of the city. And we were having all the mouth masks, and we were handing out hand gel, and there was music, because we do believe, that's why I love the entertainment so much. In Southeast, we do believe in songs, we do believe in music to get the soul out. And so we had this wonderful black harmony singing. So we set it up in a way that everybody could feel our soul of Southeast. And it went so peaceful. I'm so proud. Yeah, I'm so proud.
And what do you feel the impact that it's had afterwards? That the awareness that it's created for you, for the city, but also, like you said, for this 10-year-old that you'd spoken to so many years ago when you started. What do you feel the impact has been now?
There's one beautiful thing. I said it in an interview also, that we felt that we're not alone anymore. Because I'm even getting emotional about it. But this is what we feel. This is it. Like feeling emotional. Like, wow, we're not alone anymore.
No.
We're in this together. Black, white, if you're lesbian, gay, whatever, doesn't matter. We're in this together. We're in this together because there's just one theme we're all looking for, and that is equality and equal opportunities for everybody. Should not be defined where you've been born, your postcode. Not important. It's important where we're going through. I love this idea of stepping forward, progress, opportunities. And we had it's like a lot of hope sparkling all over Southeast, all over Amsterdam, actually all over Holland. Like, it's just wonderful. And it's not just like a tacky sort of wonderful, but it's a heartfelt wonderful. There's this beautiful song, It's a Wonderful World. This is what's coming in now, a song. I'm always thinking, okay, what is a song for me at this moment? This would be it. It's a Wonderful World. Maybe later on I can ask our singer if she wants to sing it for me. I don't know.
We'll see. I'm not sure. We need to check with if that's possible or not. But this is very much impromptu. But no, when you were speaking, that touched me too, and I just realized that it also hit an emotion in me too, because I personally felt also after such a long time, I'd actually ignored a lot of this feeling that I had. I wrote a post about it a couple of weeks ago, which literally talked about, this feeling of before judging, ask. Before I
Yeah.
went to the protest
Yeah.
too, but I was also judged because of it. I was
Yeah.
like, well, how could you? And you brought more
Yeah.
people into danger because of it.
Yeah.
And I just felt
Yeah.
this calling that happened. I feel
Yes.
every person of,
Yeah.
and I feel like the attention needs to and should remain on the
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter, because I feel a lot of people, this whole discussion about,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
don't all lives matter?
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
But it's the fact of focusing on the equality of a specific group which has had years of not
Yeah.
having equal rights.
Yeah.
And from there, of course, it touches everyone that either of color or whatnot, saying, hey, I feel like this is also the time to
Yeah.
also step up and to say we need equality everywhere. And not only this is not only about race, this is indeed
No,
about
it's
sexual
everything.
orientation,
Yeah.
gender, whatever
Yeah.
it may
Yeah.
be, all
Yeah.
of it
Yeah.
comes on board. But I feel
Yeah.
that's the part where we get
Yeah, I
first.
love the way that you're saying that it should be there should be a focus.
Yeah.
And then again, I think that we're all just focusing on this equal opportunities.
Yeah.
The opportunities.
Yeah.
And but I do love the conversation which has been starting and it's going on.
Yeah.
And it still continues. I think this is, I think that what we are all inspired to is asking ourselves this question, okay, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, we had like 3 wonderful weeks with a lot of demonstrations and blah, blah.
Yeah, and then
But it
Yeah.
should be, okay, and where do we go from here? And where do we go from here? We need everybody.
Yeah.
It's just not the Black community, it's not just the Indian community, whatever, not just the gay community, no. We need all of us, but we do need all of us to focus on that conversation.
Yeah. So I want to call you teacher president as well now.
Yeah.
I'm just checking how much time I have left. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So we're going to wrap things up here. Before we do, there's a specific question that we saw while we were on the conversation. I was getting really hyped up, and you were too. And we said, oh, what can we do together? So you had a specific call.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to word it, and please fill in the gaps where I could. I said, what can we do when it comes to the city area of Amsterdam Southeast? I didn't feel like there was much that I could step into. And then you said, you know what? Send me an email.
Yeah.
So we're gonna post the email in the chat. And now this is a specific call because everybody that has either itchy fingers that says, yeah, but what can I do? Here's the chance. We're gonna set up something called the Collaborators of Amsterdam Southeast. This is literally an idea that spurred from this, something that Tanya has already been busy with for a while. And this idea is gonna be focused on everybody that wants to to contribute in some shape or form, that we're going to organize a forum and even maybe a meetup of a sort where you can say, I want to join and see what initiatives are happening within Amsterdam Southeast, connect to those initiatives and see what role I can personally play in them. Which means if any of this matters to you, no matter what it is, if it talks to you, this is the way we can approach it. So the email address has just been posted that I see. Please, I want to ask you, we're going to take 20 seconds, copy paste this email, put it in your email, compose a message because you're probably behind your laptop, and all you need to write down is collaborator, and write down collaborator TEDx Amsterdam so that it's clear where it's coming from, and then that will be sent to Tanya. Now she's going to filter it through with her team, and we're going to talk about how to bring all these people together. The only thing we need is for you to send that email. That's it. That's the first step. It's a small one. And I guarantee you, after that, we can actually do some great work together. Do you want to just touch up on that before we close up?
No, but actually, you said it really in a profound way. So maybe some of them are like, what can I do? What can I do? All of us can do something. Just bring your talent in, and we can talk about it, but bring your talent in, and I'm sure that we can pick all your brains. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having, if you are, please applause behind your screen if you're behind the screen, but I'd like to thank you very much for joining us for our conversation. I look forward to our future conversations because this hasn't ended here. Just also for the work that you've done and are doing and will continue to do. So everyone, this was Tanya. We're going to go to the wrap up right now, I think. Let's just see. No, we're going to go to a second musical. Sorry, I need a production team here. Just do it. I got a brain freeze.
Just do it.
It's warm. It's warm in this room. Yes. Okay. Yes, we are going to the music. I'm going to give it over to. I'm so sorry for this. So I'm going to pass it on to Cotel and Ton again to take us to another beautiful musical intervention. Please take it away.
Dans le port d'Amsterdam, il y a des marins qui chantent. marins qui meurent, pleins de bière et de drames, aux premières lueurs. Et dans le port d'Amsterdam, il y a des marins qui naissent dans la chaleur épaisse des longueurs océanes. Dans le port d'Amsterdam, il y a des marins qui mangent sur des nappes trop blanches des poissons ruisselants. Ils vous montrent des dents à croquer la fortune, à décroisser la lune, à bouffer des haubans. Et ça sent la morue jusque dans le cœur des frites que leurs grosses mains invitent à revenir en plus. Puis se lèvent en riant dans un bruit de tempête, referment leurs braguettes et sortent en rotant. Dans le port d'Amsterdam, il y a des marins qui dansent en se frottant la panse sur la panse des femmes. Et ils tournent et ils dansent comme des soleils crachés dans le sang déchiré d'un accordéon rance. Ils se tendent le cou pour mieux s'entendre rire, jusqu'à ce que tout à coup l'accordéon expire. Alors le geste grave, alors le regard fier, ils ramènent leur batave jusqu'en pleine lumière. Dans le port d'Amsterdam, il y a des marins qui boivent et qui reboivent et qui reboivent encore. Ils boivent à la santé des putains d'Amsterdam, de Hambourg ou d'ailleurs. Enfin, ils boivent aux dames qui leur donnent leur joli corps, qui leur donnent leur vertu. Pour une pièce en récolte, ils ont bien vu se planquer au ciel et se moucher dans les étoiles. Et ils pissent comme je pleure sur les femmes infidèles. Dans le port d'Amsterdam, 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 dans le port d'Amsterdam.
There's a lot of clapping here, right behind you. It's a production team behind it. We're like, woo! Yeah, wow, right? So, okay. Just gotta check with the production. Are we good? Do I start wrapping things up now? Because there's a few last things. Someone can pop their heads in. Yep, check, good. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching in. Thank you for being part of this first, what we've called Act 1 of TEDx Amsterdam, this salon that we organize online. This was exciting for us. We didn't know how it was going to go. We're doing this live with wonderful speakers, with artists who, by the way, oh my God, I'm just so blown away as well. But also about really important topics that we know we need to talk about. We specifically focused on the future of work and about the influence that it has on the economy and society. And we especially asked for an active question to think about, so you can think for yourself, what is it that I can do? And I think that question I'm constantly asking myself. What is it that I can do? What is it that I can do? And it's not so that you can feel helpless or useless. It's so that you can feel active and fired up, because there are things that we can do. There's so much hope. There's so many opportunities for us to connect and to do what we feel that is needed in order to actually create the change that we want to see. There's going to be an invitation sent to you all for the workplace. The workplace is where we are continuing the conversation. If you felt, actually I just invite you all there. Whether you felt good or bad doesn't matter. I would invite you all, join that workplace, because this is where the community is going to be building. This is the first time we're doing this on the workplace, and every edition of TEDx Amsterdam, they're going to be joining this community on workplace, so that we can continue the conversations, but also we can hear about all these initiatives that are taking place, so that if you want to have a question yourself and you want to post it somewhere, that's the place that we can post it. That will be shared in a bit, so just check the chat for that. I want to do two more things. One, I want to thank our partners and the people that have supported in this. There's so many to mention. I'm going to mention a few right now. Without the partners, we can't make this happen. There's an entire production here. There is from everything to the speakers coaches with great communicators. There's our long-term or longer-term partners with TCS Tata Consultancy. We have, of course, the owners of this house that said, use this house as and again, I say that this is a form of heritage of where Amsterdam comes from, and it also shows us about the different sides of the story that we need to tell, something that we just addressed a little while ago when it comes to either Black Lives Matter. So I want us to see everything that either the city has to offer, but also have all stories told. We'd also like to thank Zoom, because we've been working with their office too, specifically because they granted us to be able to use, I know many people already use Zoom, but they partner with us because they also want to support such initiatives. We are live, the video production, which honestly, if you were to see the setup here from backstage, it's incredible. Popping from one room to another, doing this live, doing it via Zoom. It's quite a challenge, but this went seamlessly, at least in front of the scenes. And the House of Orange. And the last group I want to thank, last two. The one is the speakers and our artists. Thank you for being here, for attending, for sharing. And Tanya said it as well in our conversation that we had personally. She said, you know the reason why I'm doing this? Because I need more people to know about this. And this is what TEDx Amsterdam is about. This is what TEDx is about. It's about having a place where you can share the ideas that you feel need more platform. And I hope everybody that was able to watch can do so. And of course, the last group, and I bow down to each of them, is the volunteers. We started this pre-corona time, not knowing how to do it. We connected on Zoom every week or every 2 weeks, just trying to see what is it that we need to create in this time that we're living in, especially with the questions that we're dealing with right now. And I remember the first conversations that we had on Zoom, we went into breakout sessions too, and we just said, what are the insights that this time is giving us? And a lot of them came back to things like this about, I want to be more mindful about how I deal with myself, about the choices that I make. You notice everyone's doing that more and more nowadays. But these volunteers, each of them are professionally astounding and personally just beautiful individuals. Some that I know well, some that I've gotten to know. But each of them deserve an applause because they've all dedicated their time and energy either next to being full-time at work or parents or whatnot, but still doing this next to it so that we could create this production. So I stand on the shoulders of giants of all these people that have been a part of it. And I just want to thank them and take a moment for that. To close things off, the reason why I do this, the reason why we're here, is to give platform to the ideas that need to be spread. What I want to ask you all to do while closing this thing off with the time that we have left, I want you to do, this is one thing I want you to do right now. One thing is write down the one word that pops up in your mind after this entire morning. Put that in the chat. I'm just going to see the chat come by. So just write down, it can be one word, it can be a sentence. What is it that you take from this entire morning, all the different talks that we've had, from the different way we can approach economy, to how we look at society and creating more diverse business world, to this specific area, Amsterdam Southeast, which I feel in 5 to 10 years will be the most flourishing part of Amsterdam. And that's at least a dream that I also have personally. Just seeing the words pop in. Do, go, on fire, love and understanding, expansion, hopeful, empowering, love and energy. All right. Then everyone, I think this is a good time to close this off. If you have to go to the bathroom now would be the time. No, I just want to say it's been great to do this. We look forward to seeing you in the next editions. Stay connected to us. Most of all, stay active. And what we want to just do, and that's what we're standing by, is to act. Do what you can. Connect with us if you want as a team. And I'd say till the next time. So thank you very much.